Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Lonely Artist podcast. I hope that your new year was incredible, and I hope that you're all excited for the second season of the Lonely Artist podcast. Kicking off this new season is Devilish, a writer, performer, and comic creator. She's currently working on her passion project, The Lost Crown of Maru, which can be read on Webtoon Canvas and Tapas. So, let's get started. Well, thank you so much for coming to the podcast. You're the first episode of the year. And I'm really
Yay.
excited because it's the first episode of the year, but it's also the first one, or one of the few actually, where we get to see the creator. Because usually
Yay.
everybody's is too shy to show their face. Understandable, but I
hmm
love to see a human when I'm talking to a microphone, so it's very nice. Thank you
Yeah.
for, taking the time to sit here with me and talk about your work.
Yeah, no problem. And no problem showing my face at all. I was a performance major, so the, the
That
more
helps.
screen time, the better, right?
Yeah, that really helps.
Mhm. It does indeed.
So you
And
have
thank you
what?
so much for having me as well. I'm really excited to be here.
I'm really excited to have you
hmm
because I really like your comic. I think it's such an original comic. The style is very different from most comics out there on Webtoon. The
Thank you.
story is really different as well, and it seems like it's one of those stories that just going to get bigger and bigger and more epic and epic as you read it.
Definitely,
So
definitely. It's a slow burn at first, but it'll start to explode soon.
I think people really need to get on it before it starts to explode because it's going to be just a wild ride, I bet.
Thank you. It will be. Thank you so much. Yeah, definitely. Definitely get on it soon because all I'll say is by the end of season one, which is coming in the next 4 or 5 months, that's when things are going to start to really explode. So get
Nice.
in on it before then.
I can't wait. And
hmm
I really do hope that people who are watching wait until you finish this episode and then go read it.
You're right.
And why
Just
don't you
please do.
start by telling us a little bit about how your art journey began?
Okay, yeah. I actually could not draw or do any art whatsoever until a couple years ago when I started doing this. I actually only started because I had begun the story as a D&D campaign. And Oheim and Roysa were characters, either they were player characters or NPC characters that I ended up writing a spin-off like novel for because I just really loved them. And then I had an art friend it said read it and say that they really wanted to help me make a comic out of it.
Yeah.
And so we started working on that. We worked on that together for about 6 months, and then she ended up like having too much going on in her life, and she couldn't continue. But I really didn't want to give up the project, so I
Yeah.
started learning to draw myself for the first time, and now here we are. And I actually do have a line artist that I ended up hiring to help me out along the way. But yeah, like 2 years ago, I basically picked up a digital tablet, and I was like, I'm gonna figure this out myself.
That's pretty impressive, honestly. Like,
hmm
for just starting to draw 2 years ago, like, you can't even tell. It's kind of
Thank
wild.
you.
And I
I
feel like,
practice every day.
well, you have no other choice when it comes to comics,
Right.
right?
Yeah.
I feel like that's what comics do to you. Like, it just forces you to step out of your comfort zone, and if you
hmm
are lacking in some skill, you either learn to make it or you just can't
Yep.
draw the thing.
Yeah, that's the attitude you have to have is like, if I don't know how to do it, I guess I'm gonna learn because I need it for the comic. So we'll figure it out.
No other choice.
hmm
So that
I
is
guess.
how you got into making comics through the D&D campaign and then, developing the
Yeah.
story. And you
hmm
said you wrote a novel for it. Do you have like a completely written script for the story?
I have a completed first season. Like the novel part that I finished was essentially the first season of Crown.
Hmm.
And then after that, I just had bullet points for the rest of the story,
Yeah.
which is like what I know what's going to happen. I don't have a novel version of every single moment,
Yeah.
but I do have it for the entire first season of Crown, which is what we're currently on. So,
Gotcha. Well, it's good. Do you feel like you're the type of creator who needs to have at least a lot of information in advance written down, or do you kind of like are you flexible enough to on the go start changing some plot points or events?
I definitely like to change things. So I'm horrible. I actually don't write enough down.
Oh,
I'm
really?
I'm really bad. But I also just sort of live in my world in my head all the time. So like I never forget what I'm always thinking about it
Hmm.
basically. So I never write anything down because I'm always in the process of like figuring it out and considering things for it, and I guess I just don't need to write anything down,
Yeah.
and I'm definitely very open to and the type of person to change plot points as I go if I feel like something's leaning more a certain way as I develop it, or if I feel like, oh, you know what, this would be a better way to get to this point in the story, you know.
Yeah.
Yeah,
That's
I change
amazing.
things.
Like we both share the same kind of like the same thing where we were both creating a fantasy story,
Hmm.
but I am terrible at remembering anything at all. Like I have to like have everything written down or my brain will just go poof, gone. And
Yeah.
it is even more impressive to me that you remember a lot of it because some of the names in your story, man, like I would not be able to remember any of them. Sometimes when I read it, like I have to
Mhm.
reread the name just to like make sure who it is that we're talking about because my brain just does that thing with names, especially with names.
Especially
But
fantasy names are always a little
yeah,
bit weird too. So you're like,
but
where's the Sue? You know?
yeah, but I also love that your names are really creative. And I know that we were talking about this some a while back, but I want you to tell us a little bit about how you came up with some of the funniest names in your comic.
Well, a lot of them, most of them are just, made up or like names that I really, really liked. But the one that everybody really loves the story for is Oheim's name. He's the main male character essentially. So nobody knows how to pronounce his name. Everybody always comes to me and like says, "How do you say his name? Is it like oh him?" Like they don't get it. And I always tell them this story, and this is how they remember forever how to pronounce his name. And it's that I don't know if many people out there watching this have seen the movie The Room, but there is a part in that movie where the main character, played by Tommy Wiseau, comes up to the roof and he like, has a water bottle in his hand and he goes, "It's bullshit. I did not hit her. I did not." And he throws the water bottle and then he goes, "Oh hi, Mark." And so yeah, my main character's name is Oheim Ark. Oheim Mark. And
Whenever
that's
you, it's so dumb. Like you told me this, and it worked because I now I can't forget
Oheim.
about how to pronounce it. You know.
It's Oheim Mark. And it's such a dumb thing, but like, oh, I'm such a serious character too, so
Yeah.
it's so funny that it's like such a stupid name origin.
I know. That's what makes it like the best.
I love it. I love it so much. But yeah, that everybody remembers after that, and I love that. It's the best
What
way to know.
what about like Himaru? Like how do you come up with the name of Himaru?
Totally made up. Just
Okay.
completely made up. I
Yeah.
have I have like a language sort of system for Rune, which is the location of the comic. And it's just that like I know certain letters that the Runes people like to use and certain like lengths of words that they like to use and like certain syllable like things that they favor. I just have that kind of a thing that I know, and then I make up words and names that fit within what I've sort of
Yeah.
created as their cultural naming system.
Oh, okay. That's
So
pretty
I guess it's
interesting.
that. It's like
Yeah.
more world building than anything.
Yeah. Is that also like all in your head, like all the rules and parameters of the language?
Yes, definitely. I haven't written down the language rules and parameters, no, but I know them in my head. Like, actually, I think I have written down at one point like which letters you're never gonna see in Rune's names and which letters are like rarely seen and which
Yeah.
letters are favored. And I think I did write that down at one point, actually, like somewhere.
God knows where it is, but you wrote it
God
down.
knows, it's in a Discord server somewhere.
And
but I know it, so it's fine.
so one of the things that I'm curious about is you said you started writing it as a novel, right? And then your friend
Mhm.
told you about making it into a comic. But like, was there at any point was there another way you were thinking about telling the story? Like maybe write it in like Wattpad or publish it as a novel or do something different.
So I actually did transform the like novel version into a script for a like it's not like a podcast but like a radio production. It was going to be like audio only actors.
Oh, okay.
And I wrote the entire first like 45-minute episode script for that. And that's actually like the base for a lot of the comic episodes is because that was written more in script format and than the like novel version was. So we kind of
Mm-hmm.
took that and we altered that one a bit to
Gotcha.
make the comic scripts. But a lot changed. Oh
I
my
bet.
gosh, it to because Webtoon doesn't allow a lot of things. So
Yes.
the Webtoon version of the story is very mild.
Super watered down.
Oh, it's super watered down. There were, if you were to read that script for the radio show, you'd be like, "Oh my god, this was way more intense it seems."
Will you ever like share the less PG-13 version of some events in the story, like maybe on your Patreon or somewhere like that?
I would share the script, the first like radio show episode script on the Patreon for sure if
Yeah.
people were interested in it. It's definitely dark.
I'm
I'm a
sure there are
very
people.
mature writer,
Yeah.
so it's been very interesting to work through Webtoon
Hmm.
because they're very weird about their censorship and what they allow. I don't know.
Yeah. It
So
is.
I've
It's a mess. And like it's not like super easy sometimes to tell what is going to be censored and what isn't. And especially more if you compare it between like original comics and then canvas comics. Like there's this weird difference in the things that are censored there.
Mhm.
Yeah.
I'm sort of bad. I'm good about I decided not to be too crazy about showing like gore. I actually don't like gore anyway,
Hmm.
personally. I'm not a big fan, so that was easy. I won't show gore easy.
Yeah.
Um, but all the like nudity was a problem for me
Hmm.
because if anybody's followed my Instagram, I love drawing nude people. So I definitely wanted, and like there were outfits that I had to censor in the comic that like
Hmm.
showed a little bit more of Royce's ass than I
Yeah.
thought that and I thought Webtoon would be okay with. So I went through and
Mm.
added more fabric, like things like that.
Yeah.
That yeah, I'm just a mature creator, and Webtoon's been an interesting thing to navigate around. I've just tried to like be safe about all of my choices,
Hmm.
but I'm definitely horrible about my language and dialogue. I don't even care. I'm just like,
Yeah.
fuck. Come at me, Webtoon.
I love that. It's okay to leave on the edge a little bit, you know,
Yeah.
especially if you're already censoring yourself so much. Like, what's the fuck gonna do, you know?
I was like, they don't even read my comics, so it's fine.
Exactly.
There's one benefit to not being on Webtoon's radar, and it's that
Yeah.
they haven't gotten onto me for all the fucks. So
Well, I hope they never get to you for that, and you
they
get
might.
popular, and then they just allow it. So.
They it's like they won't get me for that.
No, I don't think
I
so.
I did get an episode censored on Spanish Webtoon though.
Oh, really?
It's funny because that same episode is on English and French as well, but it didn't get censored. So I thought that was very interesting.
Yeah.
It, she was sort of undressed in the background. There were like things covering it, but it wasn't enough. So
Yeah.
I got in trouble.
I had the same thing happen to me with a Spanish episode versus an English episode, and it was the same
Hmm.
thing. So I
Yeah,
was like,
interesting. I
okay.
was like, okay, yeah. I was like, shame on me.
Yeah. Well,
Yep.
and tell me a little bit about what you think, like, your your ideal. Who will be? Give me a second. Who would be your ideal reader, like for the comic?
Oh my gosh. Um, I guess definitely somebody who's really into like deep lore
Okay.
because Crown is written for people who pay attention to every detail.
Mm-hmm.
So if you're the kind of person who like just likes to skim pictures, you're always going to be confused when you read my comic, like always, because there's so much hidden in the dialogue and there's so much hidden in the scenery
Yeah.
uh, that are like huge context clues for the story early on. I do have a couple of readers that are really good about that. So if you're somebody
Yeah.
that likes to like look into the background and see if you can find clues and try to like piece together a mystery before you're actually told it, that's the kind of person who's going
Yeah.
to like my story.
Yeah, somebody who
Uh,
doesn't like to be fed the
yes,
information, right?
who likes to figure it out.
Yeah.
I'm writing for those people.
Yeah.
If you're the kind of person who likes to just be like straight told what's going on, I'm so sorry. You're never gonna get it.
I do get the sense that the story is meant for people who pay attention because, like, whenever I sit down to read it, I can't just like mindlessly read it, you know? Like, I have to sit down and like pay attention and read it. And I like
There's a
that.
lot.
I really like that because, like, a lot of stories are a little bit for that, for just like mindless reading. But sometimes when you want to read something fun or interesting, you want to be really engaged. It's nice to have it be a little bit more difficult to read or complex so that you're paying attention and are present in
Yeah.
the moment.
I do have a couple of readers that I really cherish because they are really good about catching things, and I'm
Yeah.
always like, oh yes, so somebody is catching it. So
Yeah.
that it makes me feel so good about like it's not uncatchable, you know. It's like people who are paying attention can catch it, so that like it's like validating for me.
Yeah. Do you get a lot of comments from people being like, I don't understand, or like something like
I
that?
got I got a comment one time that I thought was just like ridiculous that they didn't understand this, so I didn't really respond. But they asked me like, so they're like, "Wait, is that Royce's son?" And I was like, "I feel like it's so obvious at this point that like Zuo and the other kids are like Royce and Oheim's kids that was such an odd question to me. I was like, yeah, I
Yeah.
feel like everybody knows that. Like, yeah,
Yeah. Well, maybe they were definitely not paying attention.
yeah, because there's literally no piece of dialogue that's like Zuo is Royce's son, but like if you're paying attention to the
Yeah.
story, it's one of those things. So you got to pay attention. There's
Yeah.
lots of like hidden things in the portraits on the walls in the palace. Like there's all kinds of hidden
Yeah.
clues everywhere. So
I love it when they're almost like Easter eggs as well. So
yeah, they
you
are.
have to like really look into the background and like decipher what's going on there. Like what are you being given with everything that you're looking at? And I wanted to also ask you like what is your favorite thing about comics?
Oh my gosh. I definitely think the world building, and I actually really love doing like just art wise, I love doing the effects and the magic stuff.
Yeah.
Obviously really, really fun. But I think the favorite part's the world building. I really enjoy having this whole like weird fantastical universe that I created and that I get to just play around with.
Yeah.
It's so fun.
So you would say like in your process of making the comic, your favorite thing is like the effects and the world building that you get to create?
Yeah, I think definitely the art wise, the effects would be the answer for sure. I love that part of things. And it takes extra time. I'm always like, when I have a magic heavy episode, I'm like, oh, this is going to take forever, but it's going to be so worth it.
You can tell like whenever you're doing magic, like you go all out. I
Those are
always think
serious
about
moments.
I think about your comic and like the first word that comes to my mind is like sparkly, but like sparkly with magic, you know how it sometimes is sparkly. I definitely get that sense from your comic and your art.
Good. Good.
And what would you say is your least favorite thing about the process of making comics?
Oh my God, I hate storyboarding. I hate turning it from the script to the thumbnails. I hate it. It's the worst part. Like if you know what, I'm gonna save my next comment for a question later.
Okay, I know.
Yeah.
I know which one you're talking about.
Yep.
But hey, another question about, well, you hate storyboarding, but like, are you one of those creators who creates like stick figure storyboards, or do you like sort of draft them into almost like what it's going to look like?
I draft them into what it's going to look like because I then have to send it to a line artist, and I don't give her stick figures. I give her fully like nice sketched things
Yeah.
because it's not I don't want her to like have to full on draw everything. She just lines the sketches for me,
Yeah.
really, you know. So so I do everything very, very detailed. It takes a million years.
Yeah. Well, that's why you hate it.
Yeah, I hate it so much.
Yeah.
It takes me like literally it takes me like a couple of weeks to do one storyboard.
Yeah,
Awful.
I bet. I mean, because your episodes are also pretty long. Like, they're not shorties. They're
Thank you.
long.
I always feel like they're so short. I always feel like I didn't do anything in this episode.
Really? Oh my God.
Yeah,
Well, it
every
always
time.
feels like that. Like you're kind of
Hmm.
crawling with the story, but
Yeah.
in the grand scheme of like comics that are published, they're not a shorty. Like they're pretty long. They're it's nice. It's a nice read.
They're always between 30 and 40 panels.
Hmm.
That's where I always like to aim. And then
Yeah.
I have one coming up that's 52 panels that I'm like gonna die, but it'll
Is
be
that
good.
is that the next one that's coming?
No, no,
Oh, okay.
it's in a few. I have
Yeah.
the one that's coming out tonight in a couple hours. That one was easy. That was like 30 panels.
Oh, so easy. I
Easy
like
peasy.
make 8 panels per episode, dude. Oh
It's
my
a lot,
God.
and it's so much hair. Oh my
Oh
God,
no. Oh my God. Like coloring hair, that's a lot.
it's a
Well,
lot.
for everybody who's watching this, we're recording it on in December.
Hmm.
So when this comes out in January, is the really long episode going to be out or not
No, the
yet?
really long episode is probably gonna be out at like the end of February.
Oh, okay. Gotcha.
We still have a couple more
Yeah.
episodes after this one that comes out tonight that we got to get through, but
Well,
then
that's
we get
fine
bigger.
because you give people time to read your comic, whoever's listening. And then when they're done, they'll get the really long episode, and that'll be their reward.
There you go. Yeah, I'm always like 4 months ahead of my work.
I'm the same. Like I cannot be calm if I'm like working week to week. I would just go insane.
Yeah.
Especially writing.
Oh my God, especially writing. I like to just sort of take a couple of days and like plan out everything I'm gonna need for the next 4 months, and
Yeah.
then be like, all right, I did all that work, all that planning is done.
Yeah.
Now I'm good for a while.
You can rest.
Hmm. Yeah.
And what would you say is your favorite genre of comic to read? Like what do you usually read on Webtoon?
Definitely fantasy. I love seeing color. Oh my God, I love color and I love like fantasy worlds and races and world building a lot.
Hmm.
So I really love to read other people's fantasy work
Yeah.
more than anything, I think.
Hmm.
Yeah, I think so for webtoons anyway.
Yeah.
I
What
feel
are
like it's
your
different for TV. Like it's like on opposite.
what?
I feel like it's different for if you're asking me like what I like to watch on TV. I don't really like to watch fantasy. It's like a weird thing.
Oh, okay.
I prefer to like watch drama and like really intense like human moment things.
Hmm.
But like it's the opposite of for when I'm reading something. When I'm
Yeah.
reading something, I'm like, give me magic and sparkles and crazy shit.
Well, I feel like it's easier to like put fantasy into art and maybe
Hmm.
writing than it is to
Yeah.
like put it on like a screen. Definitely.
Yeah.
It's so easy to fuck it up.
Hmm.
Whereas with like drama, it can get pretty stale sometimes when you're reading it. But then
Hmm.
when
But
you
like
watch
when you
it,
have an actor doing it,
yeah,
yeah, exactly.
exactly.
So
I totally
it's
get
different
that.
mediums. Hmm.
Yeah, I'm the
Exactly.
same. There are a few like fancy things that I'll watch, but like they have to be
Totally.
really good quality.
Yeah, totally. There's a
Yeah.
few things I love, but for the most part, I don't like seek out when I go to watch something. I'm not looking up fantasy stuff. I'm looking up like what's a fun like movie I can watch. It's like a
Yeah.
drama. Or, that's like more so what I go for on Netflix and stuff.
What would you say like right now is your favorite fantasy show that's out
Oh my
there?
gosh, honestly, Sandman. Oh,
Oh,
it was so good.
yeah.
I'm such a geek about it. Like normally I'm a huge hipster and anything that like everybody likes, I all of a sudden don't like anymore.
Yeah.
But I really liked Sandman. I
I
can't
think
help it.
Sandman was like kind of made for hipsters though, so
It was so good. I loved it. Like I don't even care that everybody did fan art of it. I still like it.
yeah. Nice.
Hmm.
I feel like yeah, it would be sort of the thing that would be right up your alley for sure.
It was.
Yeah.
I wanted to do fan art of the Corinthian, but I didn't have time. I loved it.
Well, maybe you'll do it when they put out like
Someday.
second season or something like that, so you can catch the the popularity wave.
I'm such a geek. Yeah, I will.
I can't wait for
Definitely.
it.
That's my thing, for real.
And what are like your top three comics that you're reading at the moment?
Uh, so it's been on hiatus for a little while, but I'm still gonna say it because it is genuinely one of my favorites, and that's gonna be Red Vessel.
Mm, yes.
I genuinely love it. By Lawhens. So go read it, everybody. She'll be back eventually. I know. She's just on hiatus right now.
The art's so
Um,
good.
it's so good, god tier art. And I sometimes help with story points, so that's always fun. Um, I
We
am not
love
the writer.
you.
I just sometimes give advice. That's all.
We're both
But
fangirls, so
huge
we love
fangirl, we
you.
love you. Um, I also really love this one called Caravan by my friend. She goes by Feather Mage on Webtoon. So I love it because her and I feel like have very similar worlds that we've built. Like we're both very desert environment, and we have sort of like similar fantasy races that we did, but the stories are so opposite. It's almost as if we like took the same fantasy world and we both wrote different stories in it. I
Yeah.
feel like sometimes,
Yeah.
and she's so much better than me though. She's hers is
Oh
so
no.
much better than mine, but it's okay. So Caravan's really really good.
Caravan.
And then for a third one, honestly, I love Backfire by I think I don't know how to say her name out loud. Colorized.
Yes. Oh my God. She's so good with like the
Ugh.
fighting.
Yes, the action
God.
sequences are so good, and
So
I've
dynamic.
just been fangirling since before it came out. Like I believe she released like one art piece of one of her characters, and I just like geeked out and did a little fan art thing of it. And since then, her and I have been really cool, and like we've both supported each other's comics. But I
Yeah.
just knew, I knew before it came out that Backfire was going to be good. Like I just
Yeah.
sensed it, and since then I've really liked it. So I'm gonna say
Yeah.
those three.
It's I haven't read Caravan, but now I'm gonna have to.
You'll love it. It's so good. And Feather's like a really, really amazing person. So
Well,
yeah.
I can't wait to get into that world as well. I'm
Mhm.
already like it's hard to read so many comics, but like at the same time I love to. You just
Mhm.
but I do really like to like sit down and really like
Just
get it.
like binge it almost.
Yeah,
Yeah.
just kind of
Mhm.
like consume it, which
Mhm.
I feel conflicted about because on one
Yes.
hand I'm like I love binging things, but then like
Mhm.
I'm thinking, do would I like for people to binge my stories? I don't know, like
Mhm.
it's interesting, but
It is interesting.
yeah.
I try to think about that too when I think about like I think people will like my comic more once I hit a certain point in the story very soon, and then they're able to just binge all of it because I
Yeah.
think it's more palatable when you can read everything together as opposed to like waiting
Yeah.
like every 2 weeks for a small piece of this slow burn, you know?
Yes.
So I do unfortunately think my comic is a bit more palatable as a binge read almost.
Mm, yeah.
And so because of that, I've been afraid to like tell people to read my comic until I get to that point where I know it's like a good spot to end the binge.
Yeah.
You know, I'm
Yeah,
like
yeah.
almost waiting to tell people to go binge it until we
Yeah.
get there.
Because it
'Cause I
almost
don't-
feels like people are reading it and you're telling people to read it, but you're kind of giving everybody blue balls because there's no like satisfying like moment yet. It's just all really slow getting to
I think
that.
I think we're still at a point where people are like, "What is happening?" and
Yeah.
and I understand that. I know it's a slow burn. We're still introducing a couple characters, and then I promise I'm gonna have an episode that's just like smacks you with what's actually going on, and everybody's gonna be like, "Oh, okay, I understand why I saw every piece up until now."
Yeah.
But I know it's a slow burn, and people are probably like, "This is confusing. I don't want to do this."
Mm, yeah.
I promise it'll pay off. I promise.
Yeah. Well, maybe it'll help to like filter out anybody who's like not completely invested in it, at the same time.
Right.
That's kind of like a good thing.
It's cool. I know it's a slow burn. It's fine. It's not everybody's thing.
Yeah. And do you have any like comic that you really like from a small creator that you feel like deserves a lot more attention?
Yes. I'm gonna go ahead and shout out my girl Dandy and
Mm,
Paint Wonderland Red.
Yes,
Homegirl needs to release another episode,
she does.
but it's so choice, and I feel like it's so underrated still. Like I can't believe how few subs it has, and like, the art is just to die for, and she's just such a fun person. So I really think Dandy deserves a little bit more recognition
Yeah.
for sure.
And she needs to grace us with more episodes.
Yes, Homie needs to give us another
Yeah.
episode. Looking at you.
Yeah, we know you're watching.
I see you.
And,
Yeah.
well, finally, my favorite question of them all, if you had any magical art power, I already know the answer, but if you had any magical art power to help you with your artistic process, what would you like that to be?
Yeah, I definitely want like a magic generator that just like takes my script and turns it into a finished like storyboard. Even not even like fully sketched out, even if it was just the stick figure storyboard, that if
Yeah.
it just took the script and was just like, here you go, here's the composition for this panel and the stick figures that you need to start with, that would be great.
Yeah.
That would be amazing.
Tell me if you ever find that tool, because that would be so nice.
Right? That's please, Lord, someday.
Yeah. Well, I also wanted to ask you if you could tell or give anybody some advice about creating comics and like following your passion projects. What would you say to anybody who's like at the starting point of that journey?
Okay, I have two good pieces of advice for that. One of them is don't wait for feeling ready, just start. Just start. Um, don't don't wait for the opportunity to knock, I guess. Just open the door yourself.
Yeah.
It's like my philosophy on everything. Um, so don't feel like you need to wait until you feel like perfect at art or like that you have a perfectly flawless story. Like just start making it and you'll figure it out along the way. And then my second piece of advice, I guess, would be stay persistent, like no matter what. Do not get phased if some of the things you post don't get a ton of likes. Do not get phased if you feel like you're going through a dry spell on social media or with your comic, because the consistency and the persistence will show eventually. Like somebody will come along and be like, "Oh wow, this person has released consistently every month for a year," and that's going to look a lot better than bursting out a couple of good episodes and then giving up because you didn't get a lot of likes. So like just stick with it and just start. Those are my
Yes.
two things.
Yes, everybody. Devilish. And her
Thank you.
wisdom.
Thank you.
And,
That's the
well,
best I got.
I just want to invite everybody to go follow her everywhere. Go read her story. Just go and consume that
Thank you.
and love it and engage with it, because it's just really fantastic and it deserves a lot more attention, in my
Thank you
opinion.
so much. I appreciate you having me and asking me all these lovely questions. Thank you.
I hope that you guys enjoyed this interview and learned a lot from it. I hope that you had a great time, and I hope to see you back here for the next one.